Welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I am Mike Briggs. We're back live. You know, I took a few weeks off. I was running for political office again, and the people of Fresno voted that they'd rather see me here on Newsmakers than in office again. So here I am, Central Valley Talk. Today we have a special guest we'll bring in just a couple minutes. I got one of my high school chums. I don't know if I could really call him a chum because when he walked in, he recognized me from high school, but I don't remember a lot from that whole decade, to tell you the truth. But John Burgess, Jr., and went to high school with me. And he and his dad and his brother somehow cooked up a plan to try to extort money from Harvey's Hotel and Casino in near Lake Tahoe. And if you remember it, it was 1980. We're going to talk to John about it in a minute. But the bomb ended up going off. But John has written a very, very interesting book. How can I do this? Really interesting. I just finished reading it today. Once I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. By the way, we have this book for sale on our website. It's called Bombing Harvey, and you can get it, I think, at Amazon.com. We'll ask John when he comes in here in a minute. John Burgess, class of 1978 at Clovis High. You know, a lot of people here at Central Valley Talk are from Clovis High. My wife, Robin, Sean, our engineer, Laura Splotch is from Clovis High, Matt Bishop is from Clovis High. So for some reason, the planets in the universe keep pulling us back here all together. But now we're in the Tower District. Anyway, sometime in August of 1980, it was a single event for us. A bomb went off, and it was like one day there was some interesting news for us. But for John Burgess, his dad and his brother, it was something that went on for years, maybe a year before the bombing, and of course they're probably still living it today. I think, Sean, do we have that clip from the news we can look at for background? In case you don't remember, by the way, there's a hotel behind me as it's blowing up. That was, 20 years ago? 30 years ago. Oh my gosh. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm sure John does too. Okay, let's look at the news clip just to bring us up to date. Can you turn it
Fire
up more?
engines that had been standing by began moving towards Harvey's immediately. Now, I was told, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but I was told there were no injuries, no one was in the hotel. So that is one very fortunate thing about today's incident.
You were about a quarter of a mile from it, is what it looks like there, Ginger.
Yes, we were kept about a quarter of a mile. The police, the Nevada Highway Patrol, the California Highway Patrol was keeping everybody away from the site. We were pushed back, we were pushed back, we were pushed back, we were pushed back. And you know how newsmen are, we were getting angry. And then the explosion came, and I was very happy that I was at that distance.
As you know, Ginger, David Fowler is still there, and he has a report now by phone, and we can all talk to him. David, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Rita. And I can give you a little background on what happened in the hotel. What they did was they surrounded the bomb with sandbags, a high stack of sandbags, and then apparently, as we understand it, they used some sort of robotic device, sort of a robot to detonate it. The blast went up, and we've been able to look at the hotel. I'm across the street now in Caesars, and I can see across into Harvey's. The blast peeled back the balcony on the second and third floor, and there's also some tin roofing on a part of the hotel that extends out on the second floor, and that is peeled back much like you would with an old-fashioned can over, just kind of turned back. Windows all the way up to the 8th or 9th floor are also blown out, although it doesn't appear that the damage was extensive many floors above the actual detonation. But as I mentioned, since they put the sandbags around the device, then detonated it, this would tend to force the explosion up. And that's probably why those upper windows are broken, although not a lot of them. The area around the hotel is still surrounded, although they have relaxed the perimeter somewhat, and they have opened up part of Harrah's. The back part, the front part is still closed because it faces on Harvey's. They have been replacing the windows in Harrah's already, so they're virtually ready to go back into business. Caesars is also reopened at this time. They're not sure. This is kind of interesting. They think they may have a gas leak in the building right now, hence they are keeping it cordoned off. And earlier there was some speculation or some concern that there might be some other type of device, but that is not confirmed, and it doesn't appear from the fact that they've let us in a little more closely that might be the case. So right now the area is cordoned off. The damage is quite severe to the second and third floors, at least on the exterior. And I would imagine that the blast has done extensive damage to the inside of the building. Rita?
Yes. Curious as to what advice people up there are giving to tourists who may be wanting to come into the area. After all, we are going into, in fact, we just saw a shot of it blowing again, David. and it was spectacular.
Well, you know,
any advice now for
Fred,
people who might want to come up here this weekend?
Well, I think everything's going to be all right this weekend as best we can tell. What's kind of interesting is that the T-shirt makers are already at work. There's one gentleman who has one over here that says, bang. Other T-shirt makers are saying, I survived the bomb. I bombed at Tahoe. All of this within the last 24 hours. So this kind of gives you some idea of the mentality here today. As Ginger pointed out, people seem almost euphoric by the thing. We took one last spin just before they detonated it. We spun over the area in Helicopter 4 when they had evacuated, and we could see this huge ring of people in this quarter-mile perimeter. It was just an incredible sight because everybody was just excited and waiting to get in there to take a look. And we were not far from there when it blew, and people were just seemed delighted by the whole thing. It was quite incredible.
David, we were also told that there was an attempt to pay off the ransom, that $3 million, but that for some reason they couldn't find it or the instructions weren't clear. What can you tell us about that?
We're just piecing that together from the FBI, and this is kind of what we have at this point. Apparently, they were supposed to make a helicopter drop of the money last night somewhere here on the shores of Lake Tahoe. Apparently, the moon was too bright. The idea was that the person who was going to take the money was supposed to follow the big beacon of the helicopter, and on some sort of prearranged signal, then the money would be dropped from the chopper. Apparently, the person who was doing the extorting figured that it was too bright. The moon was too bright, and he could be spotted, so he never showed up. He has subsequently, I understand, been in contact with the FBI and told them just that.
Okay, David Fowler, thank you very much, David, for that live report, and also Ginger Rutland. Also, our thanks to Stan Drury, your cameraman, who shot some of that stuff.
He did a marvelous job. He and Paul Hilton was the sound man.
Okay.
Commend them.
Thank you very much.
That was the news of the day back in August of 1980. But let's bring in John Burgess, Jr. Do you still go by Junior, or now you're just the...
Actually, I've never been a junior.
You never have? Really?
No, my dad doesn't have a middle name. I do. It's Waldo. But everybody calls me Junior. So, I mean, it's one way to separate us.
Well, let's talk about that day. It was, what was the date? August
27th.
August
Well, actually,
27th?
Excuse me, the bomb was placed on the 25th, I believe. And then the 26th was one of the days that they were trying to disarm it or figure out what was going on with it. And then the 27th was the actual day that they detonated it.
And this is what most of us watching remember right now, is that day, you know, watching the news breaks in. You know, it's not in our towns. We didn't pay that much attention. I mean, a little bit. You're watching, it's an interesting news story. A bomb goes off in a casino. But in those days, there was assassinations, bombings all over the world. It wasn't such a, didn't have such a big effect on us that day, those of us just at home watching the news. And in 1980, for example, I was just, 20, 21 years old, so I could care less.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a year, at least a year later, before our Clovis link came up.
Yeah, I mean, the investigation probably started right around November when they started to actually snoop around. And that's when they first contacted my dad. And then towards the end of November of that year, that's when the FBI came to my door.
Wow.
And that's when the problem started for me, but it really wasn't in the papers. The only thing that really was in the papers was the dynamite theft, which had occurred, February of that year, earlier, but nobody really put it together.
Well, let's work backwards a little. So on October 27th, was it? The bomb went off?
August
27th, the bomb goes off. And apparently what happened is they had a plan to try to defuse the bomb.
Right, they had several different plans. I mean, obviously after the payoff didn't go the way it was supposed to go, I made a phone call and told them to flip switch number 5. I don't think they believed me. Obviously they didn't, but they were debating about flipping the switch. They were talking about 4 people grabbing each corner of the bomb and trying to carry it out. And then they had a robot that the NEST team, the Nuclear Emergency Search Team, had. Then they told them that if it blew up, it would cost the city of Lake Tahoe $750,000.
To replace the robot.
Exactly. So they said no.
So, and we are going to go through the whole story, but working kind of backwards, your dad, and your brother were waiting for the money drop. The money didn't get dropped, and so you guys needed a plan B, which you didn't have.
Right.
So you had called, just to buy a little time, the sheriff's office and said, hey, just flip switch number 5, and that'll give you a little extra time.
Right.
But they didn't really get it.
I don't think they believed me.
Right. So was it the same day or the next day you called again?
It was that morning. You know, obviously the helicopter didn't fly the right way it was supposed to go, and then so I was in a rendezvous place about an hour away from my brother and my dad. So when the sun came up, I decided to just go back and see what happened. So on the way back, I stopped at the airport where my dad's girlfriend, Joanne, was waiting. And so I said, well, did you hear from them or anything? She said, no. I said, well, let's just go find them. So we got back on the road on Highway 50 and then turned down Ice House Road. And I was driving kind of fast, and I forgot about this hairpin turn. Joanne runs into the side of the mountain. So, you know, long story short, I grabbed her, put her in the car, drove up a little ways, and here's my brother and my dad walking down the road, you know, the gun over their shoulder and their little tote bags and stuff. And so that's when we all got together, and we went to the hospital to take Joanne there. And then once I brought Joanne in, my dad told me, go find a payphone and make this call.
That was the first time?
That was the first time. And that was probably like 7 o'clock in the morning after. No, it wasn't exploded yet.
Well, right, and the dispatcher said that was her first call of the day, and she maybe didn't even report it to anybody. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were. They said, I read somewhere that the news media had some information about the switches and whatnot, so I don't think they really believed me. But I didn't know that they had released that through the media. You know, we all assumed that nobody knew about the switches except for us, and then the feds.
So if you call about the switches, it must be you. We have to take a quick break. The book, Bombing Harvey by John Burgess, is available right here on Central Valley Talk, right to the left, to the right of your screen. You can click on the book and buy it right here. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Bombing Harvey with John Burgess.